Did Mkhwanazi overstep the line?
Absolutely not. If anything, I think he was one of the few people who has done what South Africans have been asking for. Like I said, people are growing frustrated. I see it on my channel every day. People are so tired of ANC corruption. It's not even funny. So I'm not a member of any party, nor have I ever been, except the ANC when I was in first year. And that's the party I'm most critical of these days.
Yeah. Should we have the national dialogue?
Absolutely not. I think the national dialogue is a categorical and horrific waste of time, energy, resources. So as long as the ANC is in power, particularly in Joburg, but also in national government, I think they see the PA as a loyal ally of the ANC. So I think they're going to keep Gayton around or try as hard as they can to do that.
The show is Engineer Your Life, and I'm Lungelo. It's one of those conversations that we've been trying to have for the longest time, but because our schedules clash, because this man is very famous, very, very famous. He probes politicians and gets them to get themselves in trouble sometimes when they speak to him. And also he's just doing amazing things. He gets a degree every month. Keeps adding to those degrees. Mr. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh, there's something that we ask on this particular platform, and I don't think you've ever been asked this wherever you go. How's your heart today?
My heart is in a good place.
Yeah.
You know, I think over the last 3 years, I went through a very difficult and trying time because of how much I was putting on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. But we speak at a time where I feel like I'm emerging out of that, and we're in a good place. So thank you for asking. And had you asked me years before, might have been a more complicated answer, but it's in a good place.
With you emerging, do you definitely think that has also made Sumaya's heart a bit calmer?
I think so.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why the last 3 years have been tricky or difficult is because we had our first son.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful moment. I love Hakeem so much. But I had always been someone who was really like, how do I optimize my schedule and make my life predictable, you know, so that I could achieve the goals that I had and Sumaya could achieve the goals she had. And a child laughs at you when you do that. It's like, I will bring chaos into your world and show you that, you know, no one can deal with, you know, the beauty of a child and know what time they're waking up and what time they're doing this. So there's a great deal of chaos, just intensity of emotion, so much love, so much uncertainty, so much hope. And somehow that coincided with also the busiest period in my life.
Yeah.
And so navigating that may have looked fun on the outside, but it took real reserves of grit and also just trying to make it through. On the other hand,
there's something you're doing with your platform. Firstly, you started podcasting way before me. I'm only 3 years in, and there's something that I learned from you and your platform.
And already 150K, that's unfair. 150K subs, yeah.
There's something that you do that I learned from you from the outside when I still had fears of starting, right?
Okay.
Where you were very intentional about creating a platform that is safe, that is clean, for the lack of a better word. You were very intentional about creating a platform that is about growth in its nature, that we can touch on controversy, but there is strategy in how you touch on controversy, right to the point that you've done that with your own life. For example, you've demonstrated family, but you're not giving us too much. We know about your wife, we know about your son, but it's not a brand that you've created, which is something that people who are popular have done and got wrong so many times. Do you think you have been intentional about all those facets with your family, still sticking on your family, that we know that Sizwe has a family, he's demonstrating being a family man, but he's not using his family as a money-making scheme?
Right, absolutely. And I think there's something sacrosanct about family. There's also something important about authenticity and not trying to project an image of perfection when, you know, raising a child is hard. Relationships are beautiful, but also difficult at times. And so you want to make sure that you're not trying to throw out an image of yourself that people try to aspire to. Meanwhile, they're looking at the Instagram reels and not real life.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm also very mindful of privacy. The more notoriety you gain, the more dangerous you realize that fame can be. I've been around famous people my whole life. And so I'm also conscious that my family don't necessarily want that. And so I would never thrust them into that position without their consent, especially when you have a young child as well. I've tried to make sure that he's able to grow up without being seen except by the people he loves. And later in his life, if he wants to take that path, he can do that. But I'm trying to create a certain climate of safety for him as well.
Do you think it would cause unsafety for your wife had you thrust her into fame intentionally and be like, my wife, here's my wife? Because there are people who are doing it, and perhaps it's a learning moment for people who are popular and they're using their relationships to gain more numbers.
I think so. The decision to be hyper visible is one that you must take on your own, and no one can prepare you for what hypervisibility looks like, feels like, and the changes and the vicissitudes of hypervisibility. So, yes, that's something that only the individual themselves can determine. And my wife is just an incredible person. She's not someone who's driven by fame. She's not someone who's driven by the social media world. I don't even think she's on like Instagram, for example. So I respect that, and I love that. However, on the other hand, I also don't want to be like, I'm not repping my wife or my family as well. So
like you're hiding her.
Exactly. So we will post from time to time if it's like a birthday or an anniversary, and it's a real source of joy for us. But it's striking that balance and respecting your partner's wishes, respecting your wishes. What is difficult, though, for example, for my wife or for the people around me, is when you get attacked on social media, or even when you do something great and people are celebrating, and this new image of you gets created, and it's not a real image. And so, for example, if you're getting attacked, the people around you almost take it more personally than you do.
Absolutely.
Because you can respond, but they feel like they don't have control over this image of you that people are projecting that isn't a real image. And that can be difficult for them. I've also felt that with me, in relation to my father, for example. I sometimes take the attacks on him more than he does. He's like, I'm used to this, but I'm like, no, but
it's intense.
Like it's just so wrong. It's so false. But when it's an attack on me, again, I almost feel like, I can brush it off. So there is that distance for those who are not in the firing line or in the spotlight. That can sometimes feel like a lack of control.
There's a guest I recently had a conversation with. The episode is not out yet. And she was saying that the reason she's coming onto the platform is because for the longest time, she thought silence is golden in this space that we are in. And she's recently realizing that when you let a narrative perpetuate long enough by many loud voices, it becomes the truth to a certain extent, or it becomes fact. How are you approaching negative stereotypes around you? Do you address them? Do you keep quiet because silence is golden and brands love silence?
I'm very much in the silence is golden camp, but it does come at a cost. It's kind of like a lose-lose. If you respond too much, it takes away from your energy. It takes away from your time. It distracts and detracts from your peace. And ultimately, I think the goal is to make you not do what it is that you're here to do, because now you're fielding comments. And one thing I have learned from my father, who has been attacked a lot, and just over time,
every other month.
and that's even recent, when I was 10 and 15, and he's always been a figure that's drawn strong public opinion, positive or negative. But he's very stoical about it. He's like, look, over the long term, the truth emerges, and just don't worry about the noise. And that's something I've learned from him. So I'm in the silence is golden camp, but there are exceptions when, something is so egregiously false, so egregiously unfair, and has the traction where it is appropriate to respond. And so in exceptional circumstances, I'll respond. But I've kind of set like a little parameter for myself. So I'm like, if something gets more than 1,000 likes, then that's quite a big reach.
Sure.
Then like that can, but that's been useful because every time something happens, but it didn't reach the threshold.
Yeah.
So it'll get covered.
I like that.
Yeah. So if you can see, okay, this is obviously like a very big exceptional thing, then you can intervene to set the record straight. But other than that, attention spans are so low. And what I do also believe is that those who are speaking the most often and the loudest are a minority, but a vocal minority.
Sure.
So trust that people know you. Like people who watch SMWX, there may be someone who's watched for like 5 years, but they've never liked, they've never commented, they've never gone to social media, but they have followed the journey. Those are the people, who know you. And if enough people know who you really are, then you don't need to worry about the vocal minority who are painting a distorted picture.
And what I've loved about the type of platforms we've created is that YouTube, people don't see it as social media. It's more a digital new media platform. So you rarely find people who are not on social media and they only consume your podcast there. That's it. So the noise that's happening on Twitter, they don't know about. The false information that's happening on TikTok, they're not aware. This distorted view of you that's being created, they're not aware. And they respect you for the organic, authentic content that you're creating there.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Another thing about the platforms we're creating as well is the realization that has to come to you that like your personal Twitter page is not the same as it used to be.
Yeah.
Like it's now you're getting interactions every minute. When you log in, it's that X thing 20 plus.
Yes.
It's stuck on 20 plus. Like, yes. And that's a very different engagement. And if you think it's like your old social media page that you used to use for your friends, you're going to be in a world of trouble.
Yeah.
One important thing for me has been creating a certain distance. So, I've got my great, brilliant producer, Oradile, and, he does a lot of my posting. So I'm not necessarily there like posting the stuff. Because once you go in and you start posting, now something catches you. Now you're scrolling. Now you're like, why was I even here in the first place? So creating that barrier between the posting and the consuming has been important. But obviously the barrier is not always perfect.
The good old trick of being a content creator versus being a content consumer, the more you become hyper visible, you then have to limit the consuming part a lot.
Yeah.
And be like, I'll give you a clip, but doesn't mean I'm going to engage much on it.
Yeah.
It can go viral, but I'm continuing with my life because my life is so busy and things are actually happening in my life that demand my attention and my authenticity. It's out there. It's happening. It's like, even us with the episodes, it's like, you guys are thinking about this episode. I'm busy shooting something else. Right? I'm always shooting something else. I love that. I want to speak about your education. Everybody speaks about your Oxford journey a lot. Obviously it's because you're a PhD, you're a real doctor, and you have 10 doctor. So nobody actually knows what your undergrad is, or do you ever speak about it? And where did you do your undergrad?
I did my undergrad at UCT.
Okay.
And probably what you would be interested to know is that I would say I was a late bloomer academically.
Really?
So people look at me now with the Oxford thing and all of that, and they think like I was always academically
inclined. Yeah.
But like my matric results, I mean, I got like 3 distinctions, but there were some scrapes and scratches along the way. And first year, was average. Even second year to some extent, average. So I found my academic passion actually quite late within my undergraduate life. But when I found it, I really found it, so third year into honors. But I studied politics, philosophy, and economics. So at the time, everyone was expecting me to do law because father, prominent lawyer, the path is open, networks are there, just go into law.
Sure.
And the rebellious side of me was like, no, I'm going to do this new thing, politics, philosophy, and economics. It was new at the time. It's quite an established degree now. But I've always been very interested in different fields of knowledge and trying to combine them. and find the intersections between them. So politics on the one hand, something I've always been interested in. Philosophy helps you to think more deeply about questions. And economics, is rands and cents. So it's a degree which kind of combines lots of disparate fields. And I remember this unfortunately did not go very spectacularly, but then I added a physics module in first year. Physics is real, guys. So that didn't carry on.
Easy.
That is it.
Very easy.
If I came back to it now, maybe I'd feel the same way. But yeah, so I was doing like lots of different like scientific subjects, economics, philosophy at the time. But it took me a while to find my feet.
Yeah.
So that's my undergrad.
That's interesting. It's so interesting that we can I'm in STEM, so in completely polar fields. I'm the guy who had 7 A's in matric. I did maths, physics. I'm an engineer. Yeah. So it's always been my bread and butter till this day. I'm practicing as an engineer. Yeah. So it's interesting that you have demonstrated that you don't have to be a STEM person to demonstrate a high level of intelligence and excellence, because there's always that war that smarter people know maths.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
a very South African thing, actually.
Really?
I have, mentioned this before, but at Oxford, the absolute most prestigious degree is ancient history.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are very focused on practical subjects.
Sure.
But I think when you get deeper into academia, there's a bigger premium on depth of thought, thinking, and being able to master, of course, scientific subjects, but also philosophy, ancient history, and those kind of things. So it is quite fascinating. Like if you were to do like a business science degree straight out of undergrad, like in Oxford, they'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you like narrowing your focus so early, But absolutely, there is that battle. And I have respect for the STEM field. But it's never really piqued my interest to the same extent as like the history, the social science, the philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe one
day, because you do a degree every month.
I think I'm done now. But yes, learning.
Yeah, like learning is important.
Developing that habit of constant learning. Like when you think how much you learn on a podcast, like it's way more than some of the degrees I've done.
Sure.
So it's a constant learning process, watching the technical side, how to conduct an interview. Like we should go and give like lectures just on that.
Right.
Particularly in the podcast setting. Because it's something that looks so easy, but is actually profoundly difficult. So yeah, learning and just consuming knowledge has always been something that's fascinated me.
Since we're there, when did you realize that I'm not just posting YouTube videos, I'm shaping society. I need to take this seriously. When did that shift happen for you?
So during COVID, there was a period where I had a crisis of faith in the podcast. It was impossible to shoot with a team. So I was doing the shooting, editing, writing, everything. And 1,000 views, 2,000 views, sometimes less than 1,000 views. And bear in mind, this is like 2020, 2021. And I remember sitting down with Sumaya and just being like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of this? And the conclusion I came to was, I'm either going to double down or I'm going to stop. And I decided to double down.
Yeah.
So I would say in that moment of COVID, when things were at their very lowest, that was a moment where it was like, either this is just a waste of time, or I need to take it even more seriously and really start building. I didn't feel like I was shaping society though yet, but I just was taking it very seriously.
Sure.
Like that mindset shift was from like, this is a hobby that I kind of do sometimes to like, okay, I really want to do this properly.
Sure.
I would say only around last year did we sit back and say like, well, what was interesting was actually doing a year at the SABC at prime time and being privy to the numbers. And then looking at my podcast and being like, wait a second.
I'm doing better.
Yeah. Or at that stage, at least competing.
Yes.
And then in the build up to the election last year, it started to feel like, wow, like people are really tuned in and this has the capacity to shape the political discourse.
Sure.
And it is shaping the political
Yeah,
discourse.
yeah.
So there have been moments, I mean, like when Fikile Mbalula stands up and says like, yeah, I watched the podcast or whatever, or mentions an episode in a press briefing, you're like, a whole ANC SG is like, this podcast is the subject of conversation.
Sure.
You know? Or if a Julius Malema like
trash talks
attacks him, you're like, I'm done. Like that's it.
Yeah.
You know? So when it started to become part of like big politicians' conversations to the public, we were like, okay, let's keep going.
Definitely why you left the SABC too, that influenced it, because you realized that actually building this has more impact to the political discourse than being, for the lack of a better word, under these chains.
I left the SABC for a number of reasons. The first, I wouldn't want to paint it as if it was purely me. I think my show, it was okay, it was decent, but it was never brilliant. And there are various reasons for that, but I never felt like we were able to get it to the level where I wanted it to be.
Sure.
And interestingly, when you're on a broadcaster, you have actually very little control over the show. You're kind of seen as the mouthpiece.
Talent.
Exactly. And I'd never, because on a podcast, like,
Full control.
Yeah. You can like, no, tomorrow we are moving
in this
chairs.
direction.
Yeah. And the chairs are moved. Sure. Like, I remember at the SABC, we waited like a year for new chairs. So like, and the way you want to have your interview, everything is, there are a lot of guardrails around
Sure.
it. And I understand that because it's TV and the stakes are high and the
national broadcaster.
BCCSA and all of that stuff. So I think the show was good. It wasn't doing badly at all, but it was never brilliant. So the SABC actually decided, cool, we want to move you to a different type of show. We want to keep you on, but we want you to do a more kind of analysis type thing. So I had quite a profound decision to make because the bag was decent. I'm not going to lie. Mighty decent. But again, the podcast was growing. Digital media was growing. And again, it was a question of, do I want to divide my focus and keep doing this SABC thing and keeping my podcast going? Or do I want to, again, go full focus on the podcast? Scale up and take all that energy and put it into one place rather than divide it into two places. Yeah, and then it happened. And so I did decide, and I said to the SABC, cool, I see you have another path for me, but I'm actually not going to take that. So I left it. I left it on the table. And the podcast has boomed ever since.
Everybody is now trying, inverted commas, to go to TV with their podcasts. Yeah. Either license or sell them to TV, whatever the deal is that people are trying to get for TV. Why haven't you, with the SABC contacts, gone back to them and saying, hello, I've got bigger numbers than you. I'm sorry, it's obvious. You can see them. I've got bigger numbers than you. Here they are. How much do you have?
Stay tuned.
Okay.
But I do think, firstly, number one, back to link this to our social media conversation and speaking to the podcast community now, I don't think we should allow people to make us lose bags under this guise of authenticity and what have you. Social media people will force you to lose a bag, and then you lose the bag, and then
you're out.
Yeah, they're not there to are you going to replace or replenish it?
Sure.
So I do think there are financial considerations that the digital media industry needs to think through. But on the other hand, there are ways of preserving authenticity that we also need to think through. Because if we just go onto these platforms and become the platform, which is part of what I feel I did at the SABC. You know, I had this relatively big podcast at the time. SABC saw that and they were like, hey, you come onto our side, but you need to be doing it in the way we do it. Right?
I get you. Yeah.
I think we are now in a position where we can be telling these mainstream platforms, yes, you can have a part of this, but it's on my terms. Otherwise, I'm not interested in it. Right?
Are we there? Are we truly there?
I think we're there. If not there, we're very close. We're very close.
I think we're very close because what I'm observing is, because it's public knowledge, the deal that was tried by the other platform, they've lost 3 podcasts in 4 months. They've cancelled the deal with 3 podcasts in 4 months. It's signifying that the deal didn't go well then.
This is true.
Because that's the facts.
Yeah.
Here you sign a deal, you make a big PR noise about it, and then you go and lose 3 of the platforms in 4 months. Is it a question of the wrong people were signed on? Is it a question of the wrong things were said in the contract? Because we're not privy to that information.
Yeah.
Those of us who are not on mainstream and haven't been signed on to those deals. So where is the mistake happening, and why are you saying we're close if the deals look like they're failing? They may not have failed. It may maybe a pivot. We don't know, but it looks like they're failing.
Well, let me make a distinction between the entertainment side of things and news media. And in some ways, I mean, there are podcasts and platforms like yours which almost bridge those two.
Bridges the boat.
So it's not necessarily a very obvious or clear, stark distinction. But I think like Podcast and Chill, for example, Open Chats, those would be like very much on the entertainment side, right? And there, interestingly, mainstream has actually gone there first rather than the other side.
Correct.
And there are serious dangers, because what is appealing about those platforms is they are raw, they are unfiltered, they say the things that you can't say in those cleansed environments of mainstream.
Sure.
So sometimes I think when you try to import those onto these mainstream platforms, that can create major regulatory problems, right? Because like I said, these platforms have regulatory duties and there are specific bodies where you can complain, etc. So I think you're right. I think we have seen that experiment so far has not worked.
Yeah.
However, in this world, I think there's actually a much more potentially harmonious fit. So an SMWX could easily live, or a version of it could easily live on a mainstream platform.
Yeah.
An Engineer Your Life could easily live on a mainstream platform and probably wouldn't give the same headaches, regulatory headaches, than like the very out there raw unfiltered podcasts. And by the way, like those are the biggest ones right now.
Yeah.
So they're doing the most in their field and in their space. And there's a lot of forethought behind them. Like people mustn't think you get to that level of scale without thinking through. So respect to them. But yeah, I think we're at a new wave where mainstream platforms might step back and be like, okay, we still need the reach though. We still need to be relevant. So where else can we go?
Sure.
But then when they come to us, and they will come, if not, may already be at our door.
No comment.
Comment. Now we are in a position not to be too quick to jump and to say, okay, cool, but I want it to be like this. Because if it's not like this, then the audience isn't going to resonate. And if the audience doesn't resonate, it's bad for you and for me. So when they come, I think we just need to make sure that we are keeping the values of our platforms while using the opportunity to expand.
I get that. You're explaining properly that we are close.
Yeah.
We are close. The shift is happening. It's clear.
Yeah.
One thing that is undeniable is that podcasts and social media in the normal form of short form content now has overtaken viewership and listenership of traditional media.
Yeah.
I was amazed when I look at TikTok numbers. The people whom we deem are lower LSM and they don't have money for data, they live on TikTok.
Yeah.
The TikTok, a video, a short clip from this podcast can do 500,000 views in 24 hours.
Crazy.
TikTok.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And over a week it can do 5 million views. Makes you ask, the shift is happening.
It's happening.
People are opting into digital media even if they don't afford it.
So true.
Because they're saying the content that we are being given for free may not necessarily be good enough.
I fully agree. People are voting with their fingers.
Another stat, 2021 during COVID, I remember SABC1 celebrating 10 million views on Uzalo, which is their biggest show. Right now, it's doing 3.8 million views. Still their biggest show.
Yeah. There is no doubt about it.
70% drop in viewership.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And we see it every day because we live in digital media.
Yeah.
I still feel like it's taking brands, it's taking big media players so long to figure this out. And I'm like, what's going on? Because it's so palpably obvious that like these podcast platforms are booming and these legacy platforms are slowly declining. Now, what they do have is, so this show will probably get more views than most shows. But because they're like live, they have a lot of eyeballs all the time, whereas we are like once off. So we're bigger once off than pretty much any show. But radio and TV are still big to the extent that there's always someone watching it at any given time. But sooner or later, even that is going to start falling, because ultimately, even though your show is once off and my show is once off, YouTube is always on as well. So yeah, it's really a question of like, you either join or you're going to be destroyed. It's very simple.
If we look at YouTube, if we compare, let's say MultiChoice has a bouquet of channels that has shows running all the time. If we look at YouTube with a bouquet of our channels running all the time, in South Africa alone, I was shocked by the stats. There's over 1,000 podcasts. Did you know that?
That makes sense. I didn't know the exact number, but I can.
Over 1,000 podcasts in South Africa. So that means you are saying maybe you post 3 times or 4 times a week and I post twice. There's actually over 1,000 opinions at any given moment that the viewer can choose from. So we are always on as well.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true. Just not any one of us is always on. But we are always on.
We're always on as well.
We're starting to approach that curve. The other thing is infrastructure. So like TVs in houses, radios, etc., especially reaching into like rural communities, formal settlements, all of that. But I would argue we're actually seeing greater penetration there too. Like, I'm sure you see this, but what gives me such profound joy is security guards, cleaners, etc. Like all watching the show.
How
commenting.
often do petrol attendants?
Every time,
right?
It's every time now.
Those are the nicest people who want to talk about my show, and then I can't leave the petrol station now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So, and ministers and CEOs.
So it's across the board.
Yeah. And I think probably in the last 2 years, we've seen the effects of that penetration. And we know that digital penetration is just going to keep growing and growing. And digital media is far from its peak at this point, I think.
I want to speak about the stuff you like. Should we have the national dialogue?
Absolutely not. I think the national dialogue is a categorical and horrific waste of time, energy, resources. South Africa, for me, is at a place right now where we are done with optics. We are done with PR moves. And people want urgent action on crime, on corruption, economic growth, service delivery. Potholes are growing. Electricity, yes, load shedding may have ended, but is still patchy. You look at Joburg and you think to yourself, what has happened to this place that could be so great?
Sure.
The last thing that's going to fix that is a bunch of people getting into a room and trying to come to some consensus about where the country needs to go. We know where we need to go. We need a prosperous, just, working society. Politicians who we vested with power in the last election must bring that on and start doing it. And if they can't do it, they should get out of the way rather than forcing people into these PR shams.
Another fire question. Is the Patriotic Alliance going through a crisis?
I don't think so. I think the Patriotic Alliance has a very loyal base. I'm not sure they're able to grow much beyond that base, but I think their base is loyal to them. So I think rather than a crisis, we will see something of a stability or a stagnation in their numbers, but I don't think they'll necessarily fall very far either.
Will Gayton McKenzie survive the latest, which is at the back of this open chat saga? He's now, the tables have turned almost, where he's being accused of racism by social media, digging up all his old content, some which is not very old as well. The president in the recent climate is being forced to let go of people because of ministers, because of things that they've done or said, or lack of responsibility or accountability, lies in parliament. I think possibly this is something that is threatening to his position, because it is something that a minister shouldn't have said.
I agree. Those comments are concerning. On whether Gayton McKenzie will not survive, I'm not so sure, because the ANC in some ways needs the Patriotic Alliance right now. And Gayton has been a very loyal member of this GNU.
Yes.
Loyal to a fault. And that might be the danger for them, is that as people perhaps shift against the GNU, the PA may be seen as being too loyal. For example, like, they are one of the few big supporters outside the ANC of this national dialogue.
Yes,
I don't know what they get from supporting the national dialogue. So as long as the ANC is in power, particularly in Joburg, but also in national government, I think they see the PA as a loyal ally of the ANC. So I think they're going to keep Gayton around, or try as hard as they can to do that. That may be a danger for the PA, by the way.
Sure.
Because in the previous election where they did surge, they were able to style themselves as an opposition force. Now when you become part of the rot, that's when the shine wears off. So they do need to be very careful about being too linked to the GNU. But I think they see that's where their bread is buttered.
Is the DA the biggest winner in the GNU right now?
Yes, absolutely. And by no means am I a DA supporter.
You were once EFF and then you were MK sometimes.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think, interestingly, people have stopped calling me an MK pod.
Yes,
Can I ask them, like, when did it stop? Like, because I don't get these messages anymore. But I actually have only ever been a member of one political party, which is the ANC.
Sure.
When I was in first year university, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
So I've never been a member of the EFF. I'm not, and have never been a member of the MK. And I see myself in media as being a relatively independent voice, at least independent from party politics.
Sure.
I have my own views. So I'm not a member of any party, nor have I ever been, except the ANC when I was in first year. And that's the party I'm most critical of these days.
Yeah.
But I've never been linked to the DA for good reason, because I've been critical of the DA for a very long time. But I will say this. In terms of the GNU, I feel like they're getting the best of both worlds. People can now see them in government, but they are playing as if they are also sometimes in opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Their PR machine is probably the best of the GNU partners. Mm-hmm. So every time they score what they deem to be a victory, it gets blown up and the media takes it. When there's a failure, they turn around and start blaming the ANC. The National Dialogue is a perfect example of this.
Sure.
They pulled out.
Yeah.
So they're having the best of both worlds. They're in the GNU, but they aren't tainted by the failure of the National Dialogue.
Sure.
In addition to that, like I said, people are growing frustrated. I see it on my channel every day. People are so tired of ANC corruption. It's not even funny. And so tired of misgovernance that they are willing to swallow the bitter pill of DA if it just means that pothole that has been there for 4 months can just be filled.
Yeah.
That crater where you don't even know, is this a water problem or is this a road problem or some combination of the two? If that can just be fixed, then I'll give the DA, my vote just this once, and then we can get back to regular programming after that. So I think in 2026, in big cities, the DA is going to
emerge.
The DA is going to have a very good election. Do I like that? Not necessarily, but that's what I foresee.
Why are we not swallowing an Action SA pill when they are demonstrating in a big city that they were closing the potholes, fixing the electricity crisis, fixing the water issues, or is it just PR and optics with them too?
I think people may well also go Action SA, especially in a place like Pretoria, where it's fairly clear that, they're doing better than most.
Yeah.
They just don't have as big a footprint as the DA. Mm-hmm. But I do think, in Gauteng, you could see Action SA also making those gains. In any election, there are always those who rise, and it's not necessarily one, and there are those who fall. So I would say 2026 currently, I'm thinking DA will have a good election. Action SA will have a good election. I think the ANC will have a bad election. I think the EFF will probably have a stagnant to bad election, and probably MK will also have a good election if they're around by then.
And Maibuye?
You see now. Look, Maibuye is not going to be a major force in South African politics, but I think Floyd is capable at organizing, so they'll probably get some seats here or there and be able to leverage that. But I don't think they're going to be any kind of major force. Right.
I love that we're both confirming that they're just going to be a political party.
I mean, I think that's fairly clear. You wouldn't go around the country being like, hey, do you think we should form a political party? And if people say no, just be like, okay.
After investing so much resources.
Exactly. I think it's pretty clear.
Last but not least, did Mkhwanazi overstep the line?
Absolutely not. If anything, I think he was one of the few people who has done what South Africans have been asking for. We spoke about the national dialogue and how that's the opposite of what South African wants. Everyone to get around some big table, come up with some document that in some far distant day will produce some unspecified result. That's not what we need.
Sure.
We need decisive people to stand up and say, South Africans, you've been lied to. This is how devastating the situation is. And I'm willing to put my credibility and maybe even my life on the line so that we can reset this country. And I think the reason Mkhwanazi has got so much public support is because we are so desperate as a nation.
Sure.
For someone, anyone.
To speak up.
And
take action.
Yeah. Decisively.
Sure.
And to hell with the consequences. Frankly.
Yeah.
And it just showed how much we have a dire lack of that in our society. So I say, kudos to Mkhwanazi for stepping up and risking so much to demonstrate how deep the rot goes. Is he a perfect person? Probably not. Are there holes in his story? We'll see at the commission. But ultimately, I do get the sense that what he did will actually be a profound turning point for the country.
Dr. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh, what's that one thing in life you know for sure and you are absolutely certain of?
That's an interesting one because I don't actually believe that there are very many things to be certain of in life. And part of the intellectual life is always questioning and, leaving that space for uncertainty. So I don't know. I'm certain that uncertainty is everywhere.
A lovely academic answer. My brother, thank you so much. It's been a privilege.
The pleasure.
Thank you.
Like, share, subscribe. Let's get to 200,000.
Right? That's the one.
As fast as possible, let's grow this podcast. But when it starts reaching SMWX, then we do not subscribe.
The show is Engineer Your Life, and I'm Lungelo KM. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. There's something exciting that I want to tell you guys. We're hosting our very first Young Professionals Connect on the 23rd of August in partnership with Mini Cooper Umhlanga. I'm very excited. Just click on our website for EYLshop.africa and you can find out how you can reserve your seat. Now,